Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Bulletproof Dental Practice Podcast. Today, I've got Craig sitting in his beautiful backyard. He went ultra pro with his background. That is not a Zoom. That is not a Zoom virtual background. That is actually his yard. And I'm jealous. We have a guest on today, Patrick MacLellan, and we're going to talk about what Patrick does and how it's appropriate for what's going on in today's kind of economic environment, especially in dentistry. But Craig and I realized that we haven't done a podcast in a few weeks. Well, maybe a week or so. And, because we've been like all of you listening, we've been dealing with some of our own affairs and getting things handled with this COVID-19 stuff. So anyway, buddy, it's good to be podcasting with you again. And,
it's good to be back, Peter. We went through, like all of us, we've gone through an extremely stressful time, and the first maybe week of it or 10 days of it was almost like disbelief. It's like those stages of grief where it's like disbelief and anger and frustration. And we recognize we haven't, outside of what we did with Ali Aramchian for the HR for Health, we really haven't paid it forward back into the community. We're very active with the mastermind at this point, but just wanted to update you guys because Peter and I have been speaking multiple times per day and kind of just getting through this together, keeping our brain and bodies as fit as they possibly can, and holding each other accountable to an exercise routine, because that's really been the key in this period. Peter and I are shut down. The governor mandated in Florida the state closure till May 8th. And I kind of think that's funny, by the way, that the governor picks a day, 2 weeks ago. It's like Groundhog's Day.
Nostradamus.
There's like a COVID-19. There's a COVID-19 groundhog that's going to come out like Puxatawny Phil. He's going to like smell around and like go back in his hole and like, oh shit, 4 more weeks of COVID, we're kind of locked down right now. We're seeing only emergency patients, and Pete and I had to do a lot of heavy.
You went out for a second. Heavy what?
Heavy lifting with our teams, just trying to get things organized so we could weather this storm. But we've sat here thinking like, well, what can we do? How can we turn this into expansion mode versus just a contraction mode? So the first week is contraction, obviously, with furloughs and layoffs and all that stuff that we all had to do, because without an operating business, it doesn't take long to do basic math and realize your runway is short. But now on the other side of it, we're going back into expansion mode here. And so we're just trying to figure out ways that when this all ends, and it will end, how do we hit the ground running, and how do we not only ramp up production, which might be challenging with regulations, but save money on the back end. And that was the spirit of having Patrick on here, because to take your business and expand it from, an extra 10,000 a month or something like that, that's $10,000 that has to go through your cost of goods sold and your profitability analysis. And when you increase your business by 10 grand, most of us are lucky if we see 10 or 20% of that in the bottom line. So,
right. But if you save 10, you get 10, right? And that's the
exactly.
thing. Patrick, thanks for letting us kind of unpack our, having had a long hiatus of podcasting. Thanks for letting us kind of talk. Welcome to being on. And I will give a little bit more context. Patrick he's basically an owner in a company called Merchant Cost Consulting. And what this company has done and helped do for Craig and I is basically analyze our merchant processing fees and see where there's that mass confusion. If you ever looked at one of these statements, you get literally, I have a numeric seizure when I look at this stuff. I'm like, what the hell is this stuff?
And you're a numbers guy.
And I'm a numbers guy, right? And in getting to know Patrick, he's kind of let us know that it's by design this way, right? So Patrick has analyzed both Craig and mine, and this actually happened prior to the coronavirus stuff going on, that we were starting to get Patrick to analyze and help us, get lean and mean in this aspect. And but now it's just, Craig and I got on the phone and said it's so appropriate to get Patrick on now, because now's the time when a lot of us dentists are sitting idle, and we can tighten down and get lean and mean and getting in preparation for this brand new launch when they open the gates back up. But now's the time to analyze, audit your expenses, and audit, call your vendors, all these things, and be getting lean and mean on your P&L, because what else do you have to do, right? You can't be doing the business of dentistry. So get in the business of running a lean and mean business operation. So long overdue, Patrick.
And by the way, sorry to interject, and Patrick, we'll get to you in about 20 more minutes from now. But
You're a great guest listener, Patrick.
Yeah, you're going to be in the top 5 best guest listeners. You know, we always talk about working in and on the business, and there are obviously, we're forced at this point to stop. And this is the time when you want to start doing the things that you're never going to always be too busy to do, because frankly, you know, credit card fees, you know, I've negotiated mine several times. And what I've had to learn over the last decade, unfortunately, I learned the hard way, is I negotiate them down, and within a couple months or whatever, 6 months, 8 months, they creep right back up. And I'm like, this crap should be illegal. Because it just doesn't seem like I take the fees down. I'm really happy. And then all of a sudden, you know, 8 months, a year later, they're all the way back up again. I'm like, how the hell did that happen? So I definitely want to talk about that, Patrick, of how that just creeps back up. But this is the time, and I wanted to say this before we get started, this is the time when you have idle time to actually work on your business and not just in it. So that's really important. So Patrick, without any further ado, tell us a little bit about yourself to the guests.
Well, first and foremost, I really appreciate you guys having me on here. It's great to be here. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Now is a great time to really look at your expenses under a magnifying glass to see what areas you may be able to cut costs in. And merchant services is definitely one of those areas. It's a very hard industry to navigate. There are very deceptive sales tactics being used, and the industry can just be tough to pilot. And when you take a closer look at these expenses, when you're looking at your statement, it's in another language. It's meant to be hieroglyphics to see exactly where your money is going, what you're exactly spending to accept these cards. And I applaud the both of you for actually renegotiating or trying to renegotiate the fees by yourselves, because not a lot of people do that. But like you said, Craig, once you do that, it being an unregulated industry, these fees are just going to creep back up again. They're going to move things around, and what you were able to renegotiate, they're just going to go right back up to where they were, if not more than before. That typically happens 3 to 4 times a year with these increases.
Yeah, and that is something that I notice as well. You know, everyone who runs a business is familiar with that P&L line item aspect of credit card processing fees, and we've all tried to negotiate them. And like Craig's saying, you know, I've actually found this even in ordering some dental supplies. You know, you negotiate these hard deals, and we don't have the bandwidth, honestly, Patrick, to go back and, you know, running businesses and seeing patients and doing payroll and trying to do marketing. You know, we don't have the bandwidth to go back and recheck someone who made a promise that these fees were going to stay, you know, and then we go back, like Craig's saying, it's super frustrating. Be like, oh, really? Everything's, you know, 3 months later, everything's back to where it was. Like, that was a waste of time. And it just kind of gives the whole industry, no offense, it gives your whole industry kind of a black mark of not being transparent. So that's been frustrating. So that has been nice about working with you, in that you've been an advocate. And basically, you know, it's not just like, hey, we'll do a service here and we're gone, right? You actually stay on as the advocate, and right, because it behooves both of us for you to stay on, meaning you guys don't get paid if you don't get the reduction, and we don't get the savings if we don't stay with you. So it's a nice synergistic relationship where everyone has skin in the game. And I think that's where lasting relationships are made, for sure.
Well, in full disclosure, Patrick, I never negotiated on my own. I've always hired companies to do it. The problem was I hired them periodically. You know, I never had any business proposition for me to engage with someone long-term, because I didn't really think it was needed. Right. So the first like 5 times, or, you know, maybe I've probably done it 5 times over my career of 21 years. And the first 5 times I didn't realize it needed to be done again. So I'd switch processors or something like that. And
Here's why I love this, Craig.
Go up again.
I'm sorry to interject. Here's why I love this. You and I are sophisticated dental operators, right? Meaning, you know, we have scale to our operations. We know what we're doing. And for you and I to basically just be like, to be so kind of like, no, we're not even utilizing this. When Patrick kind of discovered it for us, I was like, holy cow, our listenership really needs this. Dentistry really needs this, especially right now, right? And so that was just shocking to me. And the savings, you know, we're not talking about $50 a month savings here. We're talking about significant money for doing nothing other than advocating, you know, getting someone like that's trustworthy, like Patrick on your side. And the savings are significant. So Patrick, maybe you can, I mean, I know kind of the first month you analyzed it, my savings alone are $1,200 a month, Right?
Well, I'm beating you, by the way.
You're beating me, right? And you're $2,000 a month. I already thought I had negotiated hardcore because, like you said, Craig, I'm a numbers guy and I dig into that stuff. But you're saving $2,000 a month, which would, like you said, that's an extra $20,000 of clinical collections to equal that amount almost, right? In an operation your size. So Patrick, unpack, I guess kind of unpack your process a little bit, how this benefits, what's the fee structure set up? How can maybe Bulletproof listeners get a better deal than face value, or market rate in the company and stuff like that?
Yeah, so after doing the initial audit of both your statements, we looked back 6 months prior at your recent processing history, and we were able to analyze saying, okay, you're paying these rates here, here, and here. Here's some fees we may be able to get rid of or alleviate because based on our data, metrics, and industry knowledge, we know it's bogus out there. We know where they're surcharging or where they're hiding certain fees. In both cases, we saw over that 6-month period that there were fee increases during that time period. So we were able to go back. We called the processor on your behalf and basically called them out for it. Basically, they're getting their hands caught in the cookie jar, like you said, because most businesses don't have the bandwidth to look at this and also the industry knowledge. I only have it because my background is in payments. I used to be on the sales side, selling merchant services. I don't really like to admit that because a lot of people have had a sour taste in their mouth.
You changed teams, huh?
I did. And because I saw there was a huge need for this in the business world, because these processing companies were taking advantage of really any type of business. And just because of the lack of knowledge. So we said, hey, we want to expose these bad guys for what they're doing. It's a very lucrative business on the processing side. Yeah, the money was good, but I decided to completely drop all of that on the sales side and help businesses, again, put money back in their pockets.
And
hey,
you
Patrick,
guys are really advocates. Go ahead, Craig.
Sorry, Patrick. I have a quick question for you.
Sure.
There's obviously when you don't want someone to, if you have a deceptive business practice, you want to make it as convoluted and difficult to decipher as possible. So I know that's very common, like in the 401k space and stuff like that, and the financial advisory space. And other countries have made big inroads to make things a little bit more transparent. Like, for example, a lot of the truth in lending disclosures that happen here, like when you're signing up for long-term loans and stuff like that, that's newer advancements, but that was actually being spearheaded in places like Europe. So I look at I look at this business of the credit card processing, and I see that it's intentionally cryptic to find out what the frick you're paying for everything. So my question to you is, are you aware of other areas like in Europe or other places where you're not allowed to do this to people, where the fees almost have a truth in lending type disclosure on your credit card processing? Are you aware of any place outside of the US that's doing that already?
Yeah, so in Canada and in Europe, they do have regulations put into place saying—
I knew it, Pete.
They cap their fees to a certain point and say, you can't go past or increase these fees beyond this point, where in the United States, there is no regulation.
I don't understand how the hell that's possible. So when you were describing this, it immediately, I said, I bet you anything Europe or Canada has this. So in the financial space, you're not allowed to be what's called duly registered. So you're not allowed to be like a broker dealer and a fiduciary. You're not allowed to put one hat on saying, hey, I got your best interest at heart. Oh, but buy this mutual fund, I'm going to get a kickback under the table of a commission that you're not even privy to. So that they don't have that in Europe. And it's just it seems like, I guess it's our lobbying groups. I guess the credit card processing companies are so big that they don't allow that to happen. Is that what it is? What is it exactly?
More or less, yeah. These companies, it's $1 trillion market, and they have the leverage to kind of—
Wait, $1 trillion in total fees generated, or $1 trillion transaction volume? Do you know?
In fee generated for
Holy smokes.
Yeah, it's absolutely massive. Just because, cash used to be king, but everyone's carrying plastic nowadays. And,
I mean, look at the future too. I mean, there's going to be if you thought people were doing a lot of credit cards in the past for convenience, I have a feeling on the other side of this COVID apocalypse that people are going to be really feeling that cash is dirty and don't want to touch it. So that might be, I
You need
could
physical fiat cash, right?
physical cash is physically dirty, like not like as in dirty cash. I meant
It's a
like,
vector. Cash is
it's a,
the new vector, Craig.
it could be. I mean, I was thinking about the other day, like, I was going to pull out Apple Pay and not touch my, my cash.
Long Bitcoin, short currency.
Oh God, here we go again.
Uh,
I knew anytime markets, anything comes up, Pete's going to take this chance to drop a little Bitcoin in there.
No, I'm sorry.
But it's crazy that we're not being protected, because one would think that I negotiate the fees and it would stay until the next agreement. So there has to be something within our agreements that we're signing with our payment processors that say, hey, by the way, it's up to our discretion at any given moment. That's why they roll so easily sometimes. I've talked to people before, my payment card processing, it's quite easy. Like, hey, can I get a low rate? No problem. Because they know in like 2 weeks, they're going to switch it on me.
They just beat each other up, and you have to go through the headache and the hassle of switching. But exactly, they're going to tell you you're going to get the lowest rate. They're not going to go up. You're going to get the best customer service in the world. But once you sign that dotted line, they know exactly what's going to happen, because essentially the more they're able to charge you, the more goes into their pocket. It's as simple as that.
So Patrick, let's talk about, because obviously let's talk about where the rubber meets the road. Like, how does it work? How does the business owner, or the dentist in this case, get rewarded for onboarding you and your services?
Exactly. So once they engage with us, we simply take care of all the legwork. We do all the renegotiation on the dental owner's behalf, making sure that they're priced at that absolute bottom line, and they don't have to change a thing. Everything stays in place as far as their processor, their equipment, their software, whether you're using someone like Dentrix or Dolphin Imaging. Everything stays in place. Nothing.
By the way, Patrick, I want to interrupt you one more time here. So I have the one call that I get most frequently, and the most frustrating one I ever get, is from merchant processing people saying like, hey, I could save you a whole bunch of money. Let me bring you over to my side. And it's quite aggressive, because most people are like, hey, I'm a patient in your practice. I did Invisalign, like throw me some business, like type of thing. And it's really pushy. The problem I have is that when you go to another merchant processor, and I use Dentrix in my practice, but if you go to another processing company and you can't integrate with Dentrix, even though I could probably save $40,000, $50,000 because of my volume, the hassle of trying to input payments without integration into my PMS, my practice management software, is so difficult that I could actually attribute a labor cost, saying, okay, I'll save 40 G's, which is huge, but the time and effort and inaccuracy of my people having to manually update the payments is going to be not worth it. So I just have resigned to the fact that, like, even though this guy could save me a bunch of money, and by the way, now that I know what you do, I know what they're doing. They're getting me on their merchant processing company. They're going to save me 40 grand. Of course they are. But within 7 months, my fees are going to start creeping up. And then they got me. So all they have to do is just say, let's dupe this mofo until he doesn't check his fees anymore. And that's the problem with the business model that you're in, because most people, it's just a transaction. It's gone. We sign up with you. You save us a lot of money. We love you. And we have no idea that a year later, everything's back to normal. So that's why I was so intrigued that you have that long-term relationship. So go ahead.
That's where you had me too, when you said you don't have to change a thing, because honestly, sometimes with these processes, I can save you money. The juice is not worth the squeeze of going through the process and switching, like Craig is saying. But when you're
by the way, is it like that in Eagle Sauce?
I use PNC for my processing.
So you're not even using is there a payment solution through EagleSoft?
Probably, I'm sure.
Yeah, because in Dentrix, it makes it really easy. You swipe the card and it batches into the exact patient chart. So, I mean, that's why.
I'm sure there is. Probably I got off of that because I was looking at the fees, being a numbers guy back in the day, and I said, this doesn't work for me. So and honestly, in full disclosure, when Patrick called, I was like, there's no way you're going to be able to negotiate my stuff down. I've already crushed it. And he was like,
me too, by the way, because I had the conversation 9 months ago. So I was like, there's no way. What are we going to get at $200 a month? And
so Patrick, we interrupted you. Proceed with the split, how the proper process works.
Yeah. So again, once we do that initial renegotiation, we get the savings put into place, whether it's the next month or we can get it retroactive for that given month. We can also obtain refunds for some of those overcharges as well. We've gone.
How long is that look back can you get typically, Patrick, or attempt to get?
Typically, it's 3 to 6 months, but we've gone as far as 18 months back because of certain types of errors, whether it was on purpose or not. We were able to obtain refunds for that long. So it's situationally based. depending on the process company, how you were set up, and if they made any mistakes on their end during that time. So after everything is put into place, we're going to police and audit the account on a monthly basis. So we're going to obtain your processing statement, whether you give us access to your online portal or you just send it to us via fax or email. And we're going to police and go through every single line item to make sure that nothing changed whatsoever. And we're strictly performance or contingency based. So we're only compensated when we're able to save our clients money. There's no other sort of consulting fees or startup fees.
Yeah, and so we wanted to obviously get a better deal for listeners. So talk about the splits on that, Patrick, like how it works. So if you find $2,000 savings a month for a practice like Craig's, for instance, like how would that work?
Yeah, so the typical split is 50-50. In this instance, in talking to you guys and being beneficial for your listeners of the Bulletproof Dental Practice podcast, we're willing to change that to 55-45 split. So if we're able to obtain
in their favor,
exactly.
Of course, yeah, just being clear.
$1,000 in savings on your merchant fees, the dental practice would receive $550 of that, where we would obtain the $450.
Right. And that's how you get paid as being the advocate going forward, basically, for working, like Craig is saying, avoiding the task of continually auditing it, make sure those savings stay in place.
Exactly. And we're showcasing on a monthly basis where exactly those savings came from. Each line item saying we were able to get this fee reduced, or this fee removed completely. And then however we're able to obtain those refunds, some processing companies will put it on the next statement. Others will just do an ACH into your bank account. You'll just see a nice refund in there after a certain period of time.
And this is a nice benefit. So go ahead, Greg.
Sorry. And the past for me is I used 2 or 3 different people. One of them was also doing like insurance fee negotiation for me as well. And I paid them out of pocket, but it was an easy thing. Although I never audited it. So in theory, I could have paid them blank numbers of dollars and not tracked it and not even known what I got. So I'm the type of guy, by the way, it's like, imagine when you go to the supermarket, you check out for something. Would you like to have a mail-in rebate for like $5? Or would you rather swipe it at the cashier right now and just get $3 off your purchase? I don't want to have to do very much. So the idea that, listen, right now I had no idea that I could be saving $2,000 a month in credit card fees. If you would have asked me, I would have told you $100, $200. I had no idea. So this is I prefer the no pain of execution and a long-term, partnership where someone's actually looking out for this. Cause I just know myself after 21 years of practice, I've done this so many damn times. So,
look, you get busy. I'm with you, Craig.
Yeah.
You get busy, you move on to things, you're running businesses and being the operator in that business typically.
Right. And this is literally one of the last things I think about.
Yeah. And it's honestly, it's
and viral pandemic, disability insurance. That is 2 things I wouldn't be thinking about before.
So Patrick, we talked about getting an easy way for people to connect with you. And so Craig and I thought that your domain was a little bit hard to remember. So we went ahead.
Yeah, can we work on your business? No, I'm just kidding.
So
when you first reached out, by the way, there was the funniest email. I'm going to send it. I want to send it to you eventually. It was between you, me, and our director of operations, Nick. And it was like merchant cost consulting. I'm like, do not answer this guy's email.
Yeah, he did actually.
I literally said that. I'm like,
he's just one of these other guys, right? It was I was like, these guys.
Please do not. Let's not even talk to him. Nick's like, no. Well, I had a conversation with him. No, he doesn't do what you think. I'm like, no, he does. Like, let's not get him in our ecosystem.
And Nick checked all your references and he vetted you as the attorney that he is. He vetted you, and you came out shining like a rose, pal. So going back to your website, sorry not to throw shade on it, but we've had success with doing stuff like Bulletproof Summit and stuff like that. So we have a domain set up. We'll have a landing page up that's just, if you're interested in connecting with Patrick, just go to bulletproofdiscounts.com and it'll be easy to connect with Patrick and go forward from there. And it is a rarity, honestly. I will say, Patrick, and you don't know us from, you don't know us other than the months you've been working with us, but Craig and I do not take sponsorship. We really don't advocate on too many other people unless we use them, right? So it's not like some people who just like, oh, I'll take your podcast sponsorship. I know you're not sponsoring. I'm just saying that we are very hesitant to recommend anyone for fear of our reputation is everything.
Well, I mean, let's face the fact of the matter is, Pete, you and I signed agreements for a 50% discount. So what
Right,
we
that's
negotiated. So Patrick, I don't realize if you're aware of this, but
we have a worse deal.
Yeah, we have a worse deal than we got for our listeners, but it's all good. I'm not worried about that. At 50, you had us. So we're like, well, how can we sweeten it for our listeners and make sure that they get taken care of? But I'm excited about the partnership. It's cool.
Anything further to add, Patrick, that maybe we left out that would be crucial for some of our listenership to know?
No, I think we covered the majority of things. Again, I just think during this downtime and this unprecedented area that we're in, it's really could be a good area to look and say, okay, what are my expenses? Because dealing with dental practices, we've gone to many trade shows, we've had great conversations, but getting a hold of the owner or someone who kind of deals with this side of the business or a decision maker is tough to get a hold of. You guys have so many other areas of the business to worry about between seeing patients. And
we train our teams, honestly, in full disclosure, like, because we don't have the bandwidth, like, hey, no one gets to me kind of thing. Right.
That's the way it should be. So we know that we could help in certain areas, but the communication can be tough because, again, you guys don't have that bandwidth, which I 100% understand. So this could be, again, a good time. Take a look into this where there's not a whole lot of legwork.
Right. And this is a great time while we're idle to be, and I will read your email, my signature statement again, because Craig mentioned it. So $10,000 in sales is $10,000 minus the cost of labor and goods sold. But $10,000 savings is $10,000. So that is a cool differentiator there.
Yeah, and dentists were trained. All the courses we go to and all the stuff that we're being taught is all about how to increase how to increase your top line revenue. When we all talk about, when we're telling about what we do as practice owners, it's always about top line revenue, and top line revenue is just complete bullshit. It means nothing. I have friends that tell me they want practices like Pete and mine, and they have a $1.8 million practice, and their overhead, their profitability is like 40%. And I know people that have $10 million practices and the profitability is 3%. So at the end of the day, I know it's not sexy to talk about just profitability.
It's not what you make, it's what you keep.
Right. And dentists, we hate when people negotiate with us. I get so mad when a patient comes in for a crown and be like, hey, instead of $1,500, I'll do it for 13. We're like, you're insulting me. I'm a doctor. We don't do that. So the language of negotiation is not something that rolls easily off of most dentists' tongues. So these are important things. We're all realizing right now in this time that you can call up your car insurance company and say, hey, I got 2 cars, we're only driving one. Can you hold one of the payments? Yeah, sure. Can I get a 90-day reprieve on my home, my mortgage for my house? Yeah, sure. So it's like in business, you have to ask. And I'm not proud of it, but I brag to all my friends. I'm the worst freaking negotiator. Whatever I buy, it's more, I pay more than everybody else.
You just want to be liked.
Well,
kidding.
Some of those conversations are uncomfortable, and I just like the approach where I could have a partner that does the heavy lifting. I've said this to so many friends, like, dude, get me a better deal. I would give you half the money I'm saving, because I'm about to go in and get freaking,
crushed,
rolled over and crushed. So I just love the idea of partnership. And if you start offering services in clinical dentistry as well for supply costs, I'd be very happy to enter an arrangement into you as well. You can call the Shines, Bencos, and Pattersons and get my cotton rolls a little less. I do not care, bro.
That's a great idea, Craig. Someone needs to do that. If you're not,
Pete, you could do it for me.
I could do it for you.
You could do it for me.
Because I don't need to be liked, right? So I don't care what people feel. I'll just be the hard ass and go in there. You're right. But Patrick, anyway, thanks for spending the time with us, pal. Again, I'll make it easy for everybody. Just go to bulletproofdiscounts.com and we'll connect you with Patrick. And thanks for what you're doing, Patrick. I appreciate it, and we'll look forward to it, man.
Thank you, Peter and Craig. Thanks for having me on. It was great speaking, and hopefully we'll talk again soon.
Okay, pal.
Yeah, we sure will. Take care, everybody.